My fiancé posted, finally upgrading my lifestyle after meeting a rich guy at a conference. I'm 31, male, from Chicago, a senior mechanical engineer by profession and a pretty average guy by every other standard. I rent a modest apartment, drive a practical car, and spend my weekends working on home projects or catching games with buddies. Nothing glamorous, but steady. That's what I thought life should be, steady. I'd been with my fiancée for 5 years, engaged for 8 months. She worked in software compliance, sharp, ambitious, and social enough for the both of us. The kind of person who walked into a room and everyone noticed, even when she didn't seem to care for the attention. Or at least, that's what I believed. It all started with her trip to San Diego. Her company had sent her to represent them at a major renewable software conference. She was excited, nervous even, and I encouraged her the whole way. We practiced her talking points every night. I remember her saying, "If this goes well, it could open big doors for me." I didn't realize she meant doors that didn't have my name behind them. The first 2 days she called often, sent photos of the venue, the ocean, and the view from her hotel balcony. Then Friday hit. No calls. No texts. The silence was thick. I brushed it off, assuming she was buried in networking events. That night, a friend of mine sent me a screenshot from her social feed. Her post read, "Finally upgrading my lifestyle." The photo beneath it showed her on a rooftop bar, holding champagne and laughing beside a man in a designer suit. His hand rested a little too comfortably on her lower back. And in her smile, I saw something I hadn't seen in a while, unfamiliar confidence. My throat went dry. I refreshed the post, thinking maybe I misread it. But the comments piled on, "You deserve it." "Boss move. Now we're talking." The next morning, she texted like nothing happened. "Sorry, babe, lost my phone for a bit. Met a few incredible people last night. You'd love the energy here." I stared at her message for a long time before replying, "Looks like it." When she returned, she carried herself differently. New outfit. Designer perfume. A faint air of superiority that hadn't existed before. She handed me a gift, a mug from the conference, and talked about potential investments, career leaps, and the kind of people who appreciate ambition. The first real crack came that night when she placed her phone face down on the counter during dinner. She'd never done that before. When I asked what was up, she smiled faintly and said, "You know how people are, always sending messages about follow-ups." Boring stuff. I believed her, until I didn't. 3 weeks later, I casually checked our shared phone account online to verify the bill. That's when I noticed multiple hour-long calls to a number based in California. Out of curiosity, I copied the number and plugged it into search. It matched the business directory of the same man from her post, the investor. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to know how deep it went. Over the next few days, I noticed everything. Her new work outfits, overly rehearsed stories about coworker meetings, her sudden passion for red wine, she used to hate it, and that rehearsed smile that showed up whenever she texted someone mid-dinner. Then came the night when she said it outright. We were watching TV when she muted the volume and said, "I've been offered a career-changing opportunity. It's with his company, out in San Francisco." "With who?" I asked. She looked irritated at the question. "You know who. The CEO I told you about. And he just happened to offer you a job out of nowhere?" She straightened up. "Don't make it sound shady. He said he was impressed by my ideas. This isn't about him, it's about my potential." I bit down my frustration. "You didn't even talk to me before deciding?" "This isn't a marriage conversation," she said coldly. "It's about my future. I can't stay stuck forever." And there it was. The word stuck. Less than 2 months before she left, she had looked me in the eye and said, "I can't wait to call you my husband." Now, she was treating me like an anchor she couldn't wait to cut loose. I didn't say another word. I just watched her pour herself a glass of wine, completely unmoved. A week later, an email arrived from a mutual accountant asking to begin discussions regarding separation of financial accounts and property. My chest tightened, but my judgment stayed intact. Her behavior was beyond entitled. It was strategic. She was aligning herself with money and clearing her path before I could react. Fine. Two could play strategic. Because what she didn't know was that while she was chasing luxury, she'd been sloppy with her past. She'd once used my email to sync her work documents back when her company laptop crashed. Her files had synced under my cloud backup automatically. While going through the shared drive, I found something buried inside: proposals, templates, and reports that clearly belonged to her old company. Some were marked confidential, with headers and digital tags intact. She had rebranded them, slightly edited them, and presented them as her innovation models at the conference. Those files, those career-making documents, weren't hers. What she pitched to the rich CEO as her big ideas. They were stolen IP. I didn't act impulsively. I went through every file, noting metadata, timestamps, version histories, everything. Then I spoke to an employment attorney specializing in intellectual property. According to him, what I had was clear evidence of misappropriation. The right move was to report anonymously to her former employer's legal department. So I did. It took a little over 2 weeks for the storm to hit. Her company filed a formal complaint against her new employer, backed by digital forensics. The CEO, the same guy she was now living with, was furious once he found out where her innovations came from. Sources close to the case said he shut her out immediately to protect his business reputation. Her professional reputation collapsed overnight. LinkedIn account deleted. Company scrubbed her profile. Then came her call. I answered after 3 rings. "You knew," she said quietly. "You set me up." I kept my tone even. "I didn't set you up. You stole information. That's on you." She exhaled hard into the phone. "You don't get it, do you?" He believed in me. We were planning something bigger than either of us, until someone sabotaged it. "You mean until someone told the truth?" "You'll regret this," she hissed. "He's still going to help me. People like him don't stay down long." "People like you don't either," I said calmly. "That's the problem." I hung up. Weeks passed. Her once vibrant social feed turned gray. No posts, no stories, nothing. I heard through a mutual coworker that after the IP violation claim, she'd been blacklisted in that industry altogether. High-profile tech firms wouldn't touch her. She was also being sued by her original employer for damages. And while her relationship with the executive collapsed, I learned he quietly settled with the company to avoid PR fallout, then cut all ties with her permanently. After the lawsuit hit, I thought she would disappear quietly. I was wrong. Entitlement doesn't vanish. It morphs. 2 weeks after things went south for her, I started getting unfamiliar calls. Unknown numbers, blocked IDs. Then came the email, from her. The subject line read, "You owe me a conversation." The body was short. "You think you ruined me, but you just proved how small you really are. I gave years of my life to you, and you humiliated me. I'm not going away quietly. When I go down, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are." It was signature her, defiant, manipulative, incapable of reflection. Any decent person would have taken accountability or at least tried rebuilding their life. Not her. She was gearing for round 2. Days later, her friends began calling. Some I hadn't spoken to in months. They said she'd been telling people I hacked her private files and leaked confidential work out of jealousy. She played the victim flawlessly. She was spinning a web, And for the first time, I realized I wasn't dealing with hurt pride. I was dealing with ego weaponized. I didn't react publicly. I knew defamation cases hinge on one thing: proof. So instead of taking the bait, I built a file. Screenshots, record of the email, synced timestamps, lawyer statements confirming the legitimacy of my prior report. Every narrative she tried to twist, I countered silently with verified details. But her damage control spiraled the other way. The CEO she had been involved with, on learning of her smear campaign, filed a cease and desist through his legal team. Apparently, she had begun messaging potential investors, claiming he coerced her into representing his ideas to deflect blame off herself. That's when things truly imploded. Her ex-company's legal team subpoenaed communication records during their IP case discovery phase. Those records included her own message threads, with both her CEO lover and me. In them, clear as sunlight, were her own admissions that she borrowed work to impress the right people. The same evidence she tried to bury became her undoing. Her attempt at turning herself into the victim turned the spotlight directly on her lies. By the third month, her lawsuit collapsed under countersuits. She faced fines, professional suspension, and a permanent mark on her compliance license. There's no coming back in tech governance after that. The court judgment, finalized under federal IP compliance law, stated she knowingly misappropriated proprietary content in violation of her contractual agreements. Legal justice was done. But for me, moral closure was still pending. Because even as all this unfolded, she hadn't stopped reaching out. Letters, calls, even trying to contact my family. My mother picked up once by accident. The nerve she had left was astounding. She told my mother she wanted closure and that we both needed to heal. I wasn't going to let her rewrite history for sympathy. So I planned something she couldn't manipulate, a mirror to her own greed. A month later, I heard she was trying to restart under a fake consulting service in Boston, using a new alias. She was reaching out to small eco-startups, promising insider knowledge for cuts. It was the same scam behavior scaled down. I decided to make her reputation follow her. Through a quiet, lawful method, posting factual information backed with public court records, I ensured any company searching that new alias found her real case attached to her old credentials. Every registry, every consulting background check tied back to her documented misconduct. No lies, no exaggeration, just the truth in daylight. Her facade fell apart faster than before. This time, no one came to her defense. She tried texting me one last time. "I get it, you wanted revenge. Are you happy now?" I stared at it for a bit before I replied. "No. I wanted fairness. The happiness is just a side effect." She never responded. But poetic endings have a strange rhythm. 3 months later, as chance would have it, I received an email from her old co-worker. Apparently, the rich CEO she had left me for had filed personal bankruptcy after a failed merger. Her upgrade had turned into ashes. The irony? She allegedly tried contacting him again, and he blocked her instantly. I wish I could say I was elated, but mostly I felt still. Like a storm had finally passed, leaving behind quiet air and broken branches. Some people mistake patience for weakness. But what they don't realize is that patience is just revenge waiting for precision. The last I heard, she'd moved back to her parents' home on the East Coast. Career ruined, reputation gone, carefully constructed illusions shattered. She'd once said she was finally upgrading her lifestyle. Turns out, the upgrade came with a steep downgrade in character. And me? I learned something important. Sometimes, walking away isn't about forgiveness, it's about letting natural consequences finish what you started. It had been nearly 6 months since everything fell apart. Life had steadied again. Quiet mornings, long hours at work, gym, a few beers with the guys on weekends. The chaos was behind me, or so I thought. Until one Friday evening, she showed up at my apartment. It was dark out. I had just come home from work, coat still on, when I heard a knock. When I opened the door, there she was, different, thinner, defeated. The bravado that used to define her was gone. No makeup, no polished words. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I didn't move aside. "About what?" She exhaled slowly, clutching a folder. I need to explain what happened." I reluctantly stepped back. She entered, looking around as if the place was haunted. I poured myself a glass of water, but her hands trembled. "I lost everything," she started. "The job, the money, even friends. They turned on me once the story spread." I said nothing. She wasn't wrong. Truth travels faster than guilt. "I know you probably hate me," she continued. "But I didn't mean for things to go that far. I thought if I could make something of myself, really make it big, you'd see I wasn't a failure. I wanted you to be proud." That line almost made me laugh. "You cheated," I said flatly. "You lied. You stole from people who gave you trust. That's not ambition. That's delusion." She looked down. "I just wanted more than what we had. I wanted a life that felt significant." "Significant doesn't mean selling your soul wholesale," I replied. Silence lingered for a few moments. Then she slid the folder across my counter. "These are letters from my lawyer. The settlement's finalized. I have to pay damages for the stolen work. It's everything I have left. I can't even afford rent next month." She wasn't fishing for pity. She sounded hollow, as if she'd accepted defeat. And then came the twist. She opened her phone and showed an email chain. It was between her and the CEO, the man she left me for. The timestamp stunned me. It wasn't from recent days, but from months before the conference. He'd reached out to her long before the event. She'd been flirting with him across work platforms while still pretending we were planning a wedding. The coincidental encounter at the conference had been orchestrated by her all along. She had lied even about meeting him there. I leaned back, lips tightening. "So even your escape plan wasn't spontaneous?" She nodded, quietly crying. "I messed up long before it all exploded. I kept thinking I was smarter than everyone. I wasn't. Then why tell me this now?" "Because I need you to hate me honestly," she said. "Not as the villain everyone online mocks, but as someone who was stupid enough to destroy the best thing she had." Her voice cracked. "You were kind, stable, real, and I walked away like it was nothing." I wanted to say something meaningful, something that gave closure, but the truth was that closure doesn't come wrapped in apologies. So I asked, "What do you actually want from me?" She blinked. "Forgiveness." I shook my head. "You're asking for the wrong thing. You should be asking yourself if you believe you deserve it." She froze for a second, then wiped her face and stood. "You're right." Before she left, she turned to me and whispered, "You won, you know." "No," I said. "You lost yourself." She left quietly. No scene, no drama, just the faint sound of her heels disappearing down the hall. That night, I sat in silence for a long while. She'd been the architect of her own downfall, but seeing her stripped of arrogance didn't feel victorious. It just felt final. Still, a part of me needed to understand why someone could throw away everything real for something that shiny. And I think I figured it out. Entitlement isn't born of greed, it's born of insecurity. People who fear mediocrity often mistake decency for weakness. She wasn't evil, just fragile in all the wrong ways. The next morning, I sent a single message, "I hope you find peace, not approval." No reply ever came. Months passed. Seasons shifted, and somewhere between early spring and the first hints of summer, life felt normal again. I had transferred departments at work, focusing more on design consulting. It kept me busy, steady, away from social media chaos and past noise. Every now and then, though, I'd still see traces of her name online, usually in public records or forums discussing her legal fallout. She'd become a quiet cautionary tale in professional circles. People debated how a promising mind could implode because of greed and entitlement. There was almost a clinical detachment to how they described her, the same way you'd analyze a failed prototype that couldn't sustain its own structure. My lawyer said her settlement payments to her former employer were ongoing. She'd filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy soon after, which meant years of repayment schedules under court supervision. It wasn't vindictive satisfaction, it was consequence. One evening, about a year later, I stumbled across a community post. Someone had uploaded a flyer promoting a low-cost business seminar in Boston, featuring her name as a speaker. Not under a fake alias this time, but her real one. The topic was rebuilding integrity after failure. I sat there staring at the screen, unsure whether to laugh or feel pity. The irony was almost poetic. She was still trying to capitalize on her own downfall, but this time, maybe for something less self-serving. For a moment, I hovered over her email address printed at the bottom of the flyer. I could have sent something sarcastic or cold. But instead, I shut my laptop. Some stories don't need sequels. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about restoration. I had my life back. My peace, my boundaries, and the clarity that only loss could teach. When you watch someone strip away your trust, you start recognizing the quiet beauty of solitude. You start valuing people who don't crave attention, only honesty. A few months after that, I met someone. She wasn't flashy, didn't talk about climbing ladders or upgrading lifestyles. She just laughed easily, listened carefully, and spoke with sincerity. That was enough for me. Looking back, I realized that entire episode, her betrayal, the legal spiral, the confrontation, all of it was less about love lost and more about identity reclaimed. Betrayal shows you who you refuse to become. And in a strange way, I was thankful. She stripped away illusions I didn't even know I was living under. Still, whenever someone says they want to level up their life, I can't help but smile at the irony. Because I learned the hard way, there's no bigger downgrade than trading honesty for ambition. So maybe this isn't a story about revenge or tragedy. Maybe it's just proof that eventually, everything and everyone settles at the level they truly belong. If you made it to the end, you've got a taste for real stories that hit hard and stay raw. Subscribe to my channel for more gripping tales of betrayal, karma, and redemption, each one more intense than the last. Don't miss the next twist that'll leave you speechless.